Good morning and welcome to the Skeinz Diaries. You're with Marie, episode 192, and it is 12th of September. Welcome along to another week. I am so sorry again. I thought I had fixed the YouTube issue, and it doesn't seem to have fixed it, and I don't know why, which is driving me crazy. So, if you are joining us today on Facebook, thank you very much for coming along. And if you're seeing this on YouTube, I'm sorry that it's delayed. I'm going to have to work on this. I spent some time on it this morning and thought I had it all locked down. And just literally as I was going live, it says it may take 24 hours to appear. And I really have no idea why that is. So I need to dig into that a little bit more, don't I? Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So yes, very big few days. Firstly, I have to admit, woke on Friday morning to the loss of Her Majesty the Royal, Queen Elizabeth, which was, I have to say, sort of threw my day off quite a bit because I was very fond of Her Majesty. So that has been such huge news, hasn't it, for us, all of us internationally. She was our sovereign. She was also a knitter. She did her bit, particularly during the Second World War, and yeah, it's been quite a weird thing to get our heads around, isn't it? Because she has been such a constant in all of our lives for such a long time. So it is, yes, very, very surreal. Very, very surreal. So I know the next sort of 10 days or so, I think will sort of fly by and will be a little bit crazy and a bit odd. And lots of us have to get used to lots of different sort of things. But so that was Friday. And I have been trying to sort of get things together because I've now, I thought I'd do a knit along. And did you know, I realised this morning that today, that the Fox Bay cardigan, which I am starting for this knit along, brought to you by Erica Knight and Rowan, I realised today that this is the first garment project that I've actually cast on for myself in 2022 because I realised that everything else was from previous years. So Shoji I cast on last year and had done half of, and then it sat in hibernation before it got dug out. And everything else that I've knit this year has either been a small sort of an accessory type piece, or it has been something that was started in the previous year or wasn't for me. So it was kind of weird to all of a sudden think, oh, actually, I'm casting on this garment and it's going to be a garment for me. So that was actually sort of like, oh, okay. And what I did is I thought I would take some time, and I did get this time on Friday to do this, Friday and Saturday, is I took some time out to get and do some preparation. So that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. And I knew oh no, there it is. I was just going to say, did I leave this in the other room? So and I'm about to send a newsletter out on this too, so don't panic too much in terms of writing too much of this down. And I've got my coffee. It's cold. I've got my coffee. So what I wanted to do, and I do this now with all large-scale projects, particularly garment projects, whether it be for myself or for my husband or whoever it may be, I actually now spend a little bit of time doing some preparedness before I sort of dive in. And I think so. I didn't do it for forever and forever. So don't think that if you don't do this, don't think, oh, I'm doing something wrong. You're not. I didn't do it either for the longest time. And what I discovered over a period of several years, particularly when it came to knitting for myself, is I didn't knit for myself a lot, because what would often happen is that I would finally think, okay, I want to knit something. I'd see a pattern in a book, and I didn't understand gauge particularly well. I didn't really understand anything in terms of modifications. I'd look at the super skinny model, because that's how they all were back in the day. The super skinny model and the pattern. And this is even before Ravelry, so I couldn't actually look at the pattern to see if anyone else had knitted it in different body types and how they looked. I would take a punt. And ultimately, I would cast it on, not checking gauge, not checking anything, knit it. I wouldn't even block it, didn't even know what blocking was. So the sucker together, and I'd put it on, and it'd be like, oh, Don't really like that. And you could have spent weeks on it, weeks and weeks on it. And after doing this 2 or 3 times and ultimately being disappointed, I stopped knitting for myself completely, unless it was an accessory like a scarf or a hat, or and then I just totally all I did was stuff for children and babies, because it didn't matter for me because I wasn't wearing it. So it really was a huge period of time where I didn't get to enjoy any of the fruits of my labor. Not that that bothered me. Then I had the absolute aha moment, and I have talked about this before, but the aha moment for me came when I actually realized that I was measuring myself incorrectly. And that was part of problem number one. Problem number two is I didn't understand gauge. And then once I understood the whole importance of gauge, and how, particularly when you're doing an adult garment, especially in larger sizes like I am, how one stitch or even half a stitch here or there can actually make a huge difference. I learned about ease. So ease is the wriggle room that we have in a pattern. And once I started putting all those components together and then knitted something for the first time with that knowledge, and it fit perfectly, that for me was a massive light bulb moment, a huge light bulb moment. And from that point onwards, I didn't look back. I would see things, I'd want to cast them on. I felt confident that I could cast them on, and they would fit. And from that time onwards, that's when I then gathered more confidence in terms of modifications. So what does that mean for our friend Fox Bay? So I'll just pull Fox Bay up on the screen for you. I'm not as organised as I'm actually semi-organised. I did say to Claire when we were coming. Oh, I see. Okay, I've just realised something. Oh, okay. I think I figured out why my. Don't you love it? Okay, all right. I've just figured out while I've been doing this. I have literally just figured out why. I do like that. I've just literally just figured out why I'm not getting the streaming. So I think I'll be able to sort that out now. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay. All right. Let's jump in here. Oh, yes, I accept this. Yes, I know this. I know this. Right. Why are we doing funny, weird stuff? There we go. So this is Fox Bay. So this is what I'm doing here. Oh. It's supposed to be easy. There we go. Why is this looking so strange for you? Why are we looking so strange? Oh, I know why. I guess, yes, no, I realise that. We've gone through, we've danced this dance, my friend. There we go. Let's try this. There we go. Right. That's better, isn't it? We can see everything now. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties, don't you know? Right, so this is Fox Bay. This is what I'm looking at doing. Now, what is unusual about this cardigan? This is a reversive. So from this angle, it looks like sort of a grandpa style, sort of slightly boxy, drop-shouldered, loads of positive ease, comfy cardigan. We all need one of those in our lives. We do. And I thought it was fabulous. What is intriguing and different about this one is the back. So you have this really interesting V-neck at the back, and you think, well, that's actually I quite like that. Because I mean, ultimately, if you look at that and you think, oh, I don't like that, my neck's going to get cold. That's why we have scarves and cowls, people. So that's what we do with that. But what I liked about it is it's then also designed, if you wish, to flip it around and wear it like a sweater at the front with a button up back, which is quite quirky. And she's worn it here over a big, easy, a big sort of comfortable dress. Like for me, that just ticks a whole bunch of boxes for me, right? Because I own maxi dresses, spend a lot of time in maxi dresses and tunics. And I look at that and think that's a piece that is sort of sloppy. I can throw it on. at the beginning of a day and a night, and it's got plenty of room. It'll be comfortable. You can sort of thicken it up in the winter, or thin it down in the summer. There's just a huge amount of wriggle room with it there. So that's why I chose the pattern. So that's what I really enjoy. So I have actually gone out. I found that there were a number of items in the collection. It was called the Pebble Island collection by Erica Knight. So I actually went and bought the book. I featured this pattern as an option for Perrindale a while back. And there's a number of designs in there. In fact, there's a couple in here that I really do like that I will probably know. So the first thing I do, since I had this in a book, you can purchase this. I've got a link in the description. You can actually purchase this as a download directly from Rowan for £4, which is actually a good way of doing it in it, because it's $7 US on Reverie, and I've done the conversion. It's cheaper to buy it for £4. But this isn't too bad. Buying the book, I can't remember what the book was, but it was about, what have been £12 or something, but it was pretty good and arrived fairly smartly. So then I take my book and I always photocopy the pattern out. And the reason I do that is because I scribble stuff over it, and I don't like to scribble it on the book, but I do like to scribble it on the pattern. So the first thing for me in terms of this preparation is I do actually take some time to get the pattern ready, get my swatching sorted, and actually just have some time to consider before I even cast on. Now, I never did that for years. Didn't do it at all. And ultimately, I was disappointed. I will now spend, some time doing that, like a few hours doing that, or even my knitting time for that particular day, to get that preparation, because it really does save a world of heartache later on, and I have learnt this the hard way. So the first thing I did was I wanted to get my measurements sorted and decide what size I wanted to knit. Now, I'm a classic sort of pear shape. I'm very triangular. So the first thing I did is I take my bust measurement from here, and actually I'll get the camera down. There we go. So there's the widest point of my bust there, but I actually take my bust measurement from here, which is also directly in line with my underarm. Now, a lot of people will take their bust measurement from that widest point. Now, I'm not particularly big busted. I'm very, very average. I tend not to bother with bust starts, for example, if I'm knitting a garment. There is so much positive ease in this garment that even if you were more heavily busted, you probably wouldn't need to worry about a bust start because of the amount of ease that is in there. But that is the sizing that I've done. The upper bust, I was pleased to know that my upper bust measurement hasn't changed from the last however many times that I went to do it. And my upper bust, I was right smack on 48 and 50 inches. I thought, yep, that's where I want to be. But I also took the measurement at the top of my hip bone, around there. And because I am such a pear, that measurement falls into the next sizing up, which is 52 to 54 inches. So you say to yourself, well, where are you going to go, Marie? Are you going to knit the smaller size or the larger size? So this is where your decision-making tree needs to actually come into play. So one of the things that I have learned is that it's really important to get a good fit actually at this top part of the body. If it's too big upstairs, things slip and slide around and actually not very, very comfortable to wear. So I will and actually sometimes I've been known to go back a size to get a bit of fit up here. This particular cardigan, I've gone with the fit and the sizing that I'm looking to do. And I'll tell you the reason for that in a second. And the next thing I checked is the amount of ease. I mentioned that before, that there is a lot of ease. Now, the finished measurement, the amount of ease that they have, and have they written it on here? Because I ended up working it out. So for my size, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just 6 across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So my size is so essentially I'm looking at a bust size for 48 to 50 inches. I know I'm working this in inches, but it's smaller numbers, easy for me to add up in my wee brain. The finished size measurement from a circumference perspective is pretty much being on 60 inches. So that is at around a 10-inch ease, which is really generous. So and you see that in the image, it's a really generous sloppy cardigan. So that means that you've got lots of room to move. If you don't want to have that amount of slop in the cardigan, you want it actually a little bit a firmer fitting cardigan, definitely be going a size backwards. The next thing I did, so I figured out the ease. So I figured out where my bust measurement was, figured out I've got loads of ease. But then I did that hip measurement, right? And so the hip measurement, I measured my hip, and that was 57 inches for the hip. Now, that means that even at that ease, I still have around 3 inches of ease, which I decided if I'm going to have it quite loose fitting and sort of relaxed at the top, I still wanted to express that amount of relaxation at the bottom, and I didn't want to have that what I call sort of tighter look. Now, 3 inches is still a reasonable amount of ease, but I just wasn't 100% certain. So then that is when I started. The next step I did in the process is I did my swatch, which I quite promptly left on my knitting basket next to the chair. However, I have 1,000,001 swatches here. So the next thing I did do, and I put a photograph of this up, is I knitted my swatch, which is almost identical to this, but in this lovely Diva yarn. And so I knitted myself a good old swatch, and I blocked it. And I took my measurement. The gauge on this yarn, the gauge on this pattern is 20 stitches to 28 rows. I actually got 19 and a half. So what that means is that I'm knitting ever so slightly smaller. So one stitch out. And you think, well, Marie, that's not really anything here nor there. But one stitch over that tension is actually around 2.5%. So, or even actually 5%. So what that means is that it is actually, I'm losing a little bit of ease. So that means that I will probably, of that 10 inches of ease, I'll lose about half an inch just on my alteration of tension alone. Now, I know you're all sitting there drinking your coffee going, oh, gosh, geez, Louise, why, this is all sounding a bit much, but do believe me, a little bit of time taken just to check those things out at the beginning do make a difference. So based on the fact that I'm losing about sort of 5-ish% in ease due to my gauge, and the fact that I had these two tops, different sizes at the top, I definitely decided to stay with the 48 to 50 inches. A number of these designs I'll often do 44 to 46, but I thought, no, actually I'm wanting the more relaxed fit. That's you can see in the picture, that's the style that it's designed for. So that's what I've decided to go for. However, I also want to have that level of relaxation to emulate all the way through the design. So it comes to casting on, right? So what do I cast on? So this is where my little friend Mr. Swatch and reading your pattern thoroughly come in. So what I then do is I take my pattern and I have a really good read of my pattern. And I look at this, and there are two things. One is that stitch count, but the other is the row count. Now, many people never ever bother considering the row count, but when it comes to making these modifications, the row count's really important. So the row count is actually the length of your stitch. In this case, the row count was 28. When I did my measurement, I got 28, so I knew roughly when I was there. The next size up in this pattern is 52 to 54 inches, which will give me the level of extra ease that I want. So the decision I made was when I went to cast on, I have actually cast it on in one size, but I'm actually going to knit to the size of my bust measurement. And the way around that is to actually calculate the difference in between. So this is when you take a little bit of time and you have a look at your pattern, you see how it's constructed, and you actually read where everything's at. And the beautiful thing about this pattern is that the back is, I'm starting with the back. The back's quite basic. You literally are doing a rib, then knitting straight up until you start that V shaping for the back neck. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's a drop shoulder, so there's no shoulder shaping. So you know that you've got a good amount of length to get to before any shaping or jiggery pokery occurs. So in my case, if I'm going to be knitting it to the size for my bust, I know that I need to continue straight until the work measures 44.5 inches. Great, easy peasy. So I've got 44.5 inches to play with. I also know that by my row gauge that I've got 28 rows to 10 centimetres, which is essentially 4 inches. So around 12 to 14 rows will give me close to 2.5 inches to play with. So what I've, and the difference between the size of my bust size and the size of my hip size, which is what I'm going to cast on, is 10 stitches. 10 stitches. So that is what I need to get rid of, is 10 stitches from what I cast on to where I want to be up here. So the way to do that simply is through 5 simple decreases. So I put this all in a newsletter, so don't panic yourself. But long story short, I'm going to do, after the ribbing and before that shaping, I'm going to do a series of decreases, 5 sets of double decreases, to create a gentle A-line to get to the point where I need to be. And I've worked out that if I do them every 12 rows, that will then give me essentially every sort of 5 or so centimetres decrease, 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 decrease. And if I start that 5 centimetres or 12 rows after the ribbing, from the cast on edge to that, it's approximately 30 centimetres, or what's that in inches? 30 centimetres in inches, so 15 inches of space, which is tons of room. So I'm going to sort of have that decreasing sort of at the end, and then I will start heading up. So it will give me a little bit more wiggle room. Once I get going, I'm going to actually do it, the quick measurements. I may even stretch that out a little bit further, but having a look at where I'm at, I think that's where I want to be. And it just, and particularly too, because I have a waist and then I do flare it. I've got a huge ass, people, and it flares out to me bum. It just means that I get over that hip and I've actually tucked in to where my waist is. So it should give me a more flattering fit. I know that sounded really long-winded. Angela, love the cardigan. Thank you. I love to know how you space your buttonholes. Do you use stitch count and maths to switch your buttonholes, or do you mark where your buttonholes go with a measuring tape and guide? Oh, that's really interesting. Good question, Angela. I do a bit of both, actually. I tend to do, and I think actually I haven't even looked at the buttonhole spacing for this, but that's where this row gauge comes in, because ultimately you can have as many buttonholes as you want, right? But if you know what your row gauge is, you can then, I personally would check your measurement on your row gauge, find what you're comfortable with on your swatch, count the number of rows between that, and then I would actually do it via the number of rows versus the math. So you will know what your overall length is too. So for example, if you've got a cardigan and you want more buttons in there, you can add more buttons in, right? So you don't need to reduce the number of buttons there. You can add more buttons in, and so you can either do it if you know what your finished measurement is going to be, and then do a division in terms of a length, then work out what that length equates to in rows, and actually do it that way. I think that that's an easier way of doing it. That's how I would do it. So if I know that the overall length of something is 35 centimeters, for argument's sake, and you want to have a mixture of 6 buttonholes, you've got one at the top and maybe one just from the bottom. You measure what that amount is, do your divisions, count up what your rows are using your swatch. So that's where your swatch comes into handy, and then add your maths in there. So that's sort of how I've done it. Yes. Yeah, that's how I've done it. I know I haven't done it for such a long time. But there you go. So where am I at now? So literally, I've only just started my ribbing. And you'll laugh. I'm going to tell you a story. So I'm just using these needles because these are the ones that I could find. I have a needle, a 4.5. These are on a 4.5 millimeter needle. I have a 4.5 millimeter needle that I love, and it is this one here, which is I think this is what flavor is this one? Can't even tell you. Oh, it's a higher. This is what this one is, which we don't sell here. It's typical. I got this one from Nanette at Yarns. I've had it for years and I love it. It's sort of one of my faves. You know, I mean, you know what it's like. You get your favorites, right? And do you think I could find it? When I went to go and cast my ribbing on the other day, I turned everything upside down. Then I thought, oh, well, you could do this entire project on straights if you wanted to. And I was very close to doing that. And then I was digging around and I found these, these are from Addy. Again, we don't sell these. These are from Addy, and these are essentially circular versions of straights, if this makes sense. So they've got the stoppers at the end. And I will admit, I do love the nickel metal tips, and these are very light. And I thought, great. So I cast on my ribbing. Two things I'm going to let you know. I cast on the ribbing initially, and it's a 1x1 rib. Cast it on initially in cable cast on, and looked at it, and I was like, actually, no, I don't like it. And then I did toy with the idea of doing a tubular cast on, which isn't in the pattern, because they haven't given you a indication for cast on. It's obviously they're leaving it dealer's choice, up to you. And I thought, do I do a tubular cast on? Because I've just done one of those, which is a little bit more work at the end, but you do get a really lovely finish. And then I thought, no, I couldn't be faff with that. So I actually ended up switched and ended up doing a long tail cast on, because you still get this lovely stretchy cast on. Look at that. So I've gone long tail. And yeah, and that's where I'm at. So I've only literally just started. And then I got quite annoyed because I really did want to find that other needle. And so I turned everything upside down at home trying to find it. And I knew I'd only just recently been using it because I knitted my husband's Limerick Henley in that needle. And I was like, must be here somewhere. And then yesterday afternoon, I was sort of feeling mighty annoyed with myself. And I wanted to sit down and do a little knitting. And I thought I could do this. And as I'm pulling out my knit stuff, I had the other project bag that I had, and in there was the cowl that I cast on during Knit August Nights and in my other pick up put down project, which I always have. And in there was the cowl that I cast on for Knit August Nights, which of course I'd cast on with this needle, hadn't I? Completely forgot about that because I didn't have usually I would use a 4mm needle, didn't have one of those handy. That was the one that was lying there, so that's what I got cast on. So there is my another ever after cowl, and it's actually ever so slightly damp. So that will go on the Christmas gift pile for this year. So that is, I thought, okay, I need to quickly cast that off and finish that so I can get hold of my needle. So tonight I will switch over to the rib and move everything onto there. So hopefully later in the week, when I see you, I will be able to show you where I'm at with those decreases. I'm still at two minds about how I think I'm probably going to do an SSK knit two together, or the other way around. I can never remember which will just will be essentially quite invisible. You won't see them. And I'll do those probably one stitch in from the edge. So again, it's even more invisible once you go to seam it, because when you go to seam it with your selvage, it will just literally, those decreases will just completely melt into the seam line. So that's my thinking at this stage. But this is me, people. You know that could change. But that's where I'm at with it. Now, also in today's newsletter, I'm doing mine in Vintage Abroad in Diva. And I am doing the DK. You can do this in the 10-ply if you want, but I've chosen to do it in the DK, largely due to I just wanted the slightly lighter weight and feel. If you wanted to do this and actually have a firmer tension with this, because this is a 20 stitch tension, if you wanted a 22 stitch tension, all you would need to do is drop down into that 4mm needle, and it's about an 18% difference. And to be honest with you, with the amount of positive ease that's rolling on, for a lot of people, you wouldn't even need to change sides. It would just be a slightly not quite as baggy fitting, but more than capable of doing. But as I said, mine was sitting at, I think it was 19. It was either, I'm sure it was 19.5. Or it was either 19.5 or 20.5, but I'm sure it was 19.5. So that is what I've chosen to do. In the newsletter, I've actually done up a little table for everybody of all the different yarns that I think will work really well in this project. So I've got in there, obviously, vintage. The other yarn, and this is the other yarn that I tossed up doing this project in, but I promised myself that my next project for me, I was going to do in vintage, so I'm sticking to my own promise. But I actually think the roving, which is our new DK single roving yarn, would look fantastic in this project. It'll look really good. So this is a really nice option, and we've got some great colours in that. Also, Chatswood, I think, would look fantastic, as well. Anything with a little bit of toothiness to it and a little bit of structure, I think, would be great. I think Cove would look fantastic. I think, what else did I put on that list? Bohemia. Beautiful. Also, Kelly and Co. And the reason why I say that is I grabbed, this is one of my ladder swatches, my Kelly and Co. swatches from back in the day, and the middle one, yes, that one there, that is the 20 stitch gauge for Kelly and Co. And it is fabulous. So if you've been jonesing to do some Kelly & Co. and you got some Kelly & Co. In the sale and you've been trying to figure out what to do, I think Fox Bay and Kelly & Co. will be winner chicken dinner. So that's another one. These are some other swatches that I grabbed. That's Bohemia. I think Bohemia would look great. Really good in that tension. This is the Cove. I think Cove would look awesome. If you wanted something smoother, I would consider Albertine, and I would do Albertine over Orb. I just think the traditional twisting will work better than that cylindrical twisting, and obviously Pulse and Flight would look fantastic as well. And Perrindale, don't forget Perrindale, and don't forget Snug. If you're wanting a really wonderful relaxed cardigan and you're not wanting to bust the bank, those two yarns will give you an amazing cardigan at exceptional value. Obviously, as will the vintage as well. So you've got oodles of latitude. Southlander, if you've got Southlander DK, or if you purchased any of the Truly Myrtle Southlanders, they would look awesome as well. The other thing you could play around with too, if you saw my shoji, I think about 2 or 3 newsletters ago, I put together a whole bunch of combinations in shoji. Now that's knitted on a 4mm needle. So if you wanted to actually, what I knitted that, which was cozy 4-ply plus whisper fine, easy peasy lemon squeezy on a 4.5mm needle to hit that tension. It would look incredible. All those combinations are there. You could do that. That would be some fun. Or I even grabbed this, because this is the Hecates, which is the dip that we've got currently. We have still got a little bit of this left over, and it's a really, really, really soft lilac, showing quite blue on the screen, but it is beautiful tonal lilacs. Now that would look really, really pretty in that cardigan. So there is so many options out there to play around with. So if you're quite keen to have a look at it, do have some fun with it. I think you can actually have some real fun with this cardigan. So I am looking forward to getting stuck into this. And the nice part is that the back is probably the biggest swathe of knitting that you do. And then the 2 fronts, and then very, very simple sleeves, because it's a drop shoulder. So I can't wait to get stuck into that. And before you go, bottom up and seams, trust me, there is actually something really calming about doing things in pieces, and it does actually go quite a bit faster because you're knitting it in bite-sized pieces each way. I'm really enjoying getting back into seamed knitting again after having a hiatus away for it. I think it's actually it's really, really good. Really good. Oh, Abby used the Hakka edition. She said it's gorgeous. Oh, yay. I'm glad to see you enjoyed that. We've got more dips coming, actually. We've been winding some off. And we've got a whole heapy that I will promise. I promised you we're going to have those to you. They've been some of them are really amazing. They've absolutely nailed the process now at the mill. So the trial period is over. We're into the real deals. So we've got some more of those coming. And if you picked up the Stephen West NCAL kits, I had actually a 4-ply dip in there, and we've got a couple of others. There's another 4-ply one out there that is to die for. It is so pretty, so very, very pretty. Fingers crossed, actually, I'll be able to get that one up maybe this week or next week, and I'm going to feature that with a new pattern that has just come out. And just as I say it, he pops into the chat. Hello, Charles. A new pattern that's just come out from Charles Gandy, and this dip that I've got in combination with Skeinz sock would look incredible in that pattern. So I'm going to talk about that, hopefully, fingers crossed, if I can get it up on Thursday or at least Monday of next week. So I'm going to stop babbling because I've got so many things to get done, and I know that you guys have got swatching you need to do. So why don't you take care, have a great rest of week, and I will catch up with you again on Thursday. Until then, take care.